Oh, excuse me. Let me take a swig of my tea there. Red Dragon Herbs, mental clarity. I mean, she doesn't call it mental clarity, TEA. It's called mental clarity. But always have the opportunity for a pun. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit sniffly today. I was traveling all last week and hung out with my family, which includes 4 kids under the age of 8, under the age of 9. Technically, they have an 8-year-old. And everybody drank from my water. So, without a doubt, I have some form of cold that I'm getting over. Today is the first day that I don't feel like I need to take a 3-hour nap. So, I think we're doing great in comparison. I am so sorry that it has been so long since I've done a live. I get really busy on the weekends now that we're in market season. Markets officially started the last weekend of April and into the beginning of May. So I've been at, so I did 2 weekends in a row of junk stock out in Omaha. First weekend was terrible. Probably one of the worst markets that I've had. The weather was horrible. It rained. It was windy. It was freezing cold. It was absolutely miserable. But luckily, and that was a 3-day event. So it was a little bit of a bummer. And I had to travel for it and pay for lodging and everything else. Luckily, I was signed up for both weekends, and so the weekend after was a little bit better weather. The attendance wasn't super great. I didn't do awesome at it, but I at least covered all of my expenses plus some for the 2 weekends. So they can't all be a win. That's part of it when you're doing outdoor markets, is that you are completely subject to whatever Mother Nature throws at you and whatever else is going on. So that one was just a little bit of a bummer. And then last weekend, I was at the Geneva market in the little tiny town of Geneva, Iowa. And for whatever reason, that market is always fantastic. It is two days in a tiny town of, I think maybe they have a little over 100 people or a little under 100 people. Anyways, they do it as a fundraiser for the projects in town. They make a ton of money off of it as a town, and this year there were like 200 vendors, which is way more than normal. So I had a really good market last weekend, and I was right next to Mary from Red Dragon, so that was always entertaining too. Whenever we're next to each other at markets, it's always more entertaining. Excuse me while I take another sip of tea before it gets cold. And so then yesterday I was at the downtown Des Moines Farmers Market and it was freezing. It was, I believe, a high of 57 yesterday, and during the market it felt like 50, 51. The sun did not come out until 15 minutes until the market was over. The first 3 hours were one of the slowest markets I've ever been a part of in my life. So that has been why I've not done a lot of lives lately. The 2 junk stock weekends, obviously, that was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so I couldn't do a Sunday live. And then, so that was 2 weekends in a row. And then Geneva, the following Sunday, I actually flew out of Des Moines to Washington, D.C. I had a 6 a.m. flight. So that did not really leave an opportunity to do a live then either, which is why it's been a little while. I think it's been more than a few weeks. I think it's been like a month since I've done one of these. So I thought I would hop on while I had time today. In between, my hair is all wet because I just took a shower because we have babies hatching. And so I put the babies in the bins this morning, took a shower, and then I'm headed to Collins today to restock. I am completely wiped out of Fiesta. I have no small bags. I have no big bags. I have some orders that need to get fulfilled, and obviously I have another market next weekend. So that is what I will be doing today, and then Willie and I need to record another YouTube video. We have been probably, it's been almost 2 months since we recorded on the 214 main project, so we need to catch everybody up on that. Right now we're sitting pretty idle with it because we're waiting to find out if we have the grant money, and we don't find that out until June. So, but we do need to catch everyone up because people in town have asked us about it. So that is on the plan for today as well, in between making crickets and doing all of that. But I do want to get caught up on yes, I do need to get a team together to do more videos. I was actually telling somebody that yesterday at a market. The woman who was next to me has never been next to me, and she asked if I got like reaction videos of people trying their first cricket and everything like that. And I say I would love to, but when it gets really busy, like I can't take a video, give someone a sample, and like sell crickets all at the same time. I definitely need like an event intern or someone who just follows me around with a camera, because I would love to capture these things, and I think the content is gold on them. So I will work on it. Maybe I'll put. So I got a new iPhone 11, and but I kept my iPhone 7 because it takes okay video, or if I need it for something where I don't want to be using my main phone, I could set that one up on a tripod and just capture things for an entire market. Something I'll work on. Anyways, I do have a whole bunch of questions that I do want to get to. And as always, if you are tuned in, which hello, if you're tuned in, thank you for joining. If you have questions as we go through, even if it somebody else's question sparks a question for you, please feel free to drop it in the chat and I will be happy to get to it. The other thing I've been messing around with lately is shorts, which I mean, I'm on TikTok. I'm obviously on Instagram and I do reels and I do TikToks. And so I was like, well, I'll try like repurposing some of these on shorts to see what happens. And so I started messing around with that and it's been kind of interesting. I kind of like the short form video. It doesn't feel like I have to put as much editing and as much effort into creating the video, all of that stuff. So I'll keep trying to dabble with that, particularly obviously on the farming of the crickets side, and see what kind of a response I get. So if you see some of my shorts pop up, if you like them, great. If you don't, let me know. Like I'm messing with it. I'm messing with all sorts of things. So let me scroll back. Actually, let me see if I can find when my last live was. So my last live was a month ago. So I have quite a few comments then in that case. I'm going to scroll all the way back to 4 weeks ago. And I had some very interesting questions from some people. Okay. 1 month ago. So starting with questions. Here we go. Greetings from Russia. Hello. I really like your video, very informative. I also keep a small farm in my city and also want to consult with you about feeding. Give me advice if I'm feeding my crickets right. I would be very grateful. The diet of my crickets is dry and wet food. No big deal to start. That's good. Source of moisture plus nutrition, never a bad thing. Dry food is the starting compound feed for chickens, granulated. Awesome, great. Protein levels approximately 24 to 28%. Awesome. So far so good. Wet food is pumpkin. Interesting. I know you use potatoes, but I prefer pumpkin. I see no problem with pumpkin. Crickets love it more and its protein level is higher. I have a concern that I'm not getting enough calcium and protein. Maybe I should add dried hamarus, which I don't know what that is, or something like that. What do you think? I would say if your crickets are doing well on that, there's no reason for you to change it. I love the idea of using pumpkin if that's what's really readily available to you and it's cheaper than potatoes. I say go for it. Right now, I am messing around with somebody. Not sure if she's subscribed on here, but she definitely follows me on Instagram. She recommended celery. She says the pinheads are absolutely loving celery. It's cheaper than the potatoes, and they're just getting really good results from it. So I've been messing around with a celery and potato combination for my pinheads right now. If it's cheaper and it still gets the job done and your crickets are thriving, absolutely don't change anything on that side. If you see like an uptick in cannibalism or you have some issues that way, you may need to add in some sort of animal protein. And again, this will be whatever is available to you. So here in Iowa, like we have a lot of availability of pork meal. So that would make a really good add in. Our current blend of cricket insect feed is fish meal, but whatever you have is kind of whatever you have to work with. It has to make economic sense. as well as like actual output. So if you add the stuff in and you don't see any increase in performance, but it's adding cost, like cut it back out. And if you aren't seeing any problems at all, just keep doing what you're doing. So far, I like all the things you said. I don't see any problems on my side other than, like I said, maybe the insect or the animal protein. But in general, if you're doing great, keep it up. This one, so this is in response to my what kind of crickets do we raise? It said here in Korea, we keep Gryllus bimaculatus. Gryllus bimacula. I am just doing a freaking terrible job. I'm sorry, all my entomology people, or scientifically based folks. I have finance degrees. Two-spotted cricket is the common name, due to most native species requiring hibernation. Interesting. And Acadia domesticus being host to an insect virus. Yes, everybody knows about this virus. It is the cricket paralysis virus, CPV. That being said, I think there's a lot of people that just assume that everything that is a problem with Acadia is CPV, and I just don't think that that's the case. There's research being done by the USDA studying cricket viruses and bacteria that impact them and all of that as we speak to get minds wrapped around it. Unless you've specifically tested your population for CPV to find out if that is what is causing problems, you're assuming a lot. So, but cool, good to know. So this is off of the video 3 pieces of advice for beginning cricket farmers. And I think that this one is more of a compliment than a question, but I'll read it all the same. Listen to what she said very carefully. I started a successful retail business in the UK, including selling live insects. Now I'm in another country breeding reptiles for a living, which involves breeding lots of my own insects. Everything she said is the best advice you'll get starting a business. Ignore it at your peril. Well, that was really nice of him. I would have to go back and rewatch what I said as my 3 pieces of advice, because I think that probably changes day to day depending on whatever I'm struggling with that day is usually what I think is the most important. But cheers, Dragon Farm Reptiles. Appreciate ya. Okay, this one is raising crickets, all about cricket eggs, baby crickets, incubation, etc. And the question is, what do you do so that they don't just come out of the bins? And I have to assume that this person is talking about the like grow out bins because they come out of the incubators. It just happens. We end up losing a certain amount of pinheads. They become free range right from when they are born because they just climb out. Doesn't matter what we do in terms of putting a rim around the top of the bin, of packing tape, all of that stuff. They still, if they want out, they get out. Pinheads at that point, their like weight is so low that they're very sticky. They can crawl up just about anything. So what do we use to keep them from coming out of the bins, like the grow out bins? They have food, water, shelter. Where do they want to go? The only reason they come out of the incubators is because they're in search of food. They are in search of shelter. We don't give them enough surface area as they're hatching to be happy in the bin that they're in. So that's what they're looking for. So by the time we get them to the grow out bins, and like that's what they have access to all of the things that they need. They have nowhere to go. The only time that we see like a bunch of escapees is if we have like a malfunction in one of our ventilation holes, or at the end of the life cycle when the females are completely mature and are ready to breed. They've bred with the males already, and we have not put the breeding tray in yet. That's when we tend to see an uptick in escapees. And the only reason that is because we didn't give them something they need. As long as they have everything they need, they have nowhere to go. So it's also if we see a whole bunch of escapees at a different part of the life cycle, and let's assume that like everything is okay on the ventilation side, you have some sort of a predatory problem. It may be an infestation of spiders. Something's not going great. So those tend to be indicators. All right. Ooh, I'm going to sneeze. Maybe not. Sorry for that pause. I'm going to take a drink, though, so that maybe passes. Okay. Question. This is a long one, and this is 3 weeks ago, and I did respond to it, so that's good. All right, and this is on 3 tips for beginning cricket farmer, what I wish I had done from the beginning, etc. It says, "Hi Shelby, I'm from Belgium, and I'm planning to open a store with all kinds of feeder insects one day." Awesome. Say in the next year or so. "I'm now trying different insects, mealworms, I assume buffalo worms, wax moths, locusts, dubia roaches, and since April of 22, I also added crickets to my is this doable raising all by yourself list." Cool. That's a pretty long list though, man. Oops. "This morning, my first self-bred pinheads were born at first attempt. Woohoo! Congratulations, that's awesome. Of course, I need to get them to adulthood for it to be a successful breed. I know I'm not there yet. But I admit I had a bit of a head start thanks to you. Thanks for watching. Your YouTube channel is so great and educational. I visited quite a lot of channels on insect breeding, but although there are some really good ones out there about other insects, none of them is on par with yours." Oh, man, butter me up, man. "You must spend a lot of time making these educational videos. Some days more than others. Anyways, I wish you all the best with your company. I'm very grateful you decided to share your experiences in the breeding crickets with the world. I'm also planning to make videos like yours in Dutch someday, but first things first, learning a lot about breeding them successfully. Many thanks." Oop. Oh, kind regards from Europe. Oh, thanks, Robin. I guess that wasn't a question. But thank you for sharing. And thank you for watching. And if you do ever have like any questions, do let me know. Happy to answer them. And that was 3 weeks ago. So I'm actually really curious to know, how are your crickets doing? If you watch this at any point, drop me a comment and let me know how your baby crickets are doing, because you left me on a little bit of a cliffhanger there. Okay. So this is Sherry. She says, "Thank you for that. My first question would be, the bag of frozen crickets you showed, how many bins of crickets would that represent? I'm trying to get a guesstimate how many bins would be needed to have regular ongoing food source for a small family." So I would have to look at, I think this is how I kill them. Yeah, okay. This was on the how I killed them. So the rule of thumb that I give people in terms of forecasting the amount of crickets that they should be able to grow, hopefully within their farm. Now, this widely varies based off of your farming abilities, your experience, what your actual setup is, your overall conditions. Like, there's just so many different variables that go into it. But I tell people, if you can shoot for about a half a pound of crickets per square foot of growing area. So like, let's say your bin is 1 by 1, it's a square foot. Hopefully in that 1 by 1 cube or whatever, 1 by 1 square foot space, you should be able to grow a good metric to get to, a good baseline to get to, is half a pound in that square foot. Now, as you improve, as you optimize all of those things, it is not unrealistic that you can get to a pound or a pound and a half per that. But it takes a very dialed situation to get that. So in those gallon bags, I typically aim for 4 pounds in one of those gallons. That's usually what fits by volume. So that's what you should shoot for on that. So take your square footage that you're looking at. So if it's bins, great. If you're doing like a large bin, calculate half a pound per square foot. That's your goal, and then stretch past that. But get to that half a pound per square foot first. I think that's a very, very realistic place to get to. Okay, question 2 and 2.5. I love the numbering. Is it correct that a person could directly add the frozen crickets into a stir fry, as you would add raw meat, as long as you ensure they were thoroughly cooked, or would it be better to thaw first? Lastly, why don't we see you incorporating whole crickets into your meals? Time to go beyond powders. If not you, then who? Appreciate the call out on that one. So you definitely can. You can actually go straight from like live crickets into like hot oil. There's quite a few cultures that do that. There are a few families in Des Moines that I sell them the live crickets, and that's what they do. I've asked them, like, how do you prepare these? And they have hot oil that they throw the crickets into direct. Um, in terms of frozen versus thawing them first, I would say probably like meat, where you want to thaw them out first and then cook them. But ideally, it's like any other meat. You do really want to make sure that it is thoroughly cooked. I tend to treat it like seafood, shellfish, for food safety. So above 170 degrees, maybe 170 or 175 off the top of my head, I'm not remembering, for 15 seconds to take care of anything. That's where I would recommend you start. And then why don't we see you incorporating whole crickets in your meal? Believe it or not, I actually eat whole crickets like every day. It's just I don't typically video it because it's not a big deal to me. So I don't think, oh, I should be sharing the fact that I'm eating crickets. So maybe I will do that. I don't eat a lot of like stir-fried crickets. The only time I do that is usually when they're like chef prepared. We do host like events on occasion. I team up with a woman down in Des Moines and we do edible insect events. We're doing one in July actually at the farm. That will be really cool. We are in the planning stages now for, I don't know how many we're going to seat or do anything like that, but it'd be very, very cool. It won't be just crickets, so we'll probably do crickets and mealworms and whatever she can get her hands on in terms of ingredients to make really awesome dishes. You'll be able to tour the cricket farm. It's gonna be great. I'm super excited. So I appreciate that though on the call out for that. Okay, another question on this video does not, I assume he means, does freezing not reduce nutritional value? Also, I've seen another farm where they simply wait out their death since they have a short lifespan and they are as good as dead as alive when it comes to processing. Disagree. Thoroughly disagree. Don't eat crickets that have already died. It's like any other meat. So, like, typically, only the scavengers in the wild will eat a dead animal, like turkey vultures, things like that. Their guts are structured in such a way that they can tolerate that, and they like a little bit of rot. For most predators, carnivores, omnivores, all of that thing, like you kill it and you eat it fresh for lots of reasons. So same thing with the crickets. You don't want them to die. As soon as they die, they start to decompose and ferment, and there's bad things that can happen that you like can't cook out. So don't do that. No, and I wouldn't say that the freezing is what's going to reduce the nutritional value. It's actually the cooking that probably reduces, it denatures the protein, but it's one of those things that's unavoidable and you need to do. So I don't see the freezing as an issue in terms of reducing the nutritional value. So I have a whole bunch of you in the chat, which welcome. Thanks for coming to the live. Super cool. Oh, Keith, appreciate that. Thank you on the source of knowledge for crickets. I always tell people I started this channel because I learned how to raise crickets off of YouTube and I just didn't feel like the resource was there. And the people in the raising the crickets for what I raised them for definitely were not transparent in what they were doing, how they were doing it, why they were doing it. Majority of the good resources came from folks that were raising crickets for reptiles or whatever that way. So I wanted to do something in this space that hopefully bridges both gaps. Like, absolutely, hopefully it's useful for people who are doing it for reptiles, or in the instance of Garrick, which, hello Garrick, thanks for joining. He does them for the sound. So, whatever the reason for you raising the crickets, I hope that what I produce is useful, helpful, all of the things. Okay, hi from Somerset, England. Hello. Welcome. As I say, the time change wise, you're not super late yet. You'd be 7 hours ahead of me, so it's not like middle of the night. So appreciate you joining. Hope your Sunday, you don't have too bad of Sunday scaries, but it happens if you do. Somerset, England, getting warmer here and planning to start a farm next month or so. Thanks for the channel. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. I'm super interested to know what you're going to do for a setup. Like, are you going to do it in a greenhouse? Is that why you're waiting for it to warm up? Or are you just trying to reduce your overall energy costs? Any of the above would be very valid. Would love to know more info on that one. And then Garrick, hello, welcome. Caught me on a live for once. Quick update. Wasn't watching. Temperature and overheated a bunch of pinheads. Learning lesson. Ooh, ouch. I've done that before. Interestingly though, like your pinheads tend to be more tolerant than the older crickets, and I think it's just a matter of like friction, size, space, all of that kind of stuff. So, very interesting. Bummer that you did that. Don't worry. I probably killed upwards of 100,000 crickets or more per round that I was hatching them before I realized I had a problem, just because at the time, like when I first started off, I didn't know that pinheads were so vulnerable to drying out. And so I thought like I would have bins and bins. I had these 18-gallon plastic bins that I had bought at Walmart, and they had a groove around the bottom. And I had thought that they were getting stuck in the groove because it would just be a layer of dead pinheads at the bottom. And I thought they were getting stuck in the groove and they couldn't get out. But I would watch them, because they were what I would use for an incubator. I would watch them in terms of like hatching, and I would see them crawl out of everything. And like that just wasn't the problem. And so it took me a while to put two and two together, and it took a little bit more research to figure out that I was actually drying these pinheads out. My relative humidity within my room that I was growing the crickets in was just, it was not humid enough, and so it was causing all sorts of problems. So don't feel bad about killing a few pinheads. The going saying in the cricket farming market among a few of us that joke around about it is that you're not a real cricket farmer until you've killed at least 100,000 crickets, so of any age. And I am probably, and I mean that in terms of like not intentionally, obviously harvesting them and turning them into something. I've killed them, but that was intentional. I have killed millions and millions unintentionally, so it does happen. Sorry about that. It's a rite of passage as far as I'm concerned. Oh, Keith, you want my t-shirt? So I am actually probably going to do a run of t-shirts here shortly in the summer. A lot of people have been asking about, Jiminy Cricket swag and t-shirts and all of that. A lot of people really want my Crickets the Gateway Bug t-shirt. So I don't typically like have a whole bunch of inventory of merch, because it just doesn't, it's a lot of upfront cost for me to sit on a bunch of inventory that may or may not sell. I may or may not have the right size. So typically what I do is I do a like a print to order, I think is what you would probably call it, where I work with, there's actually a local printer here in town that does it, where they do an online store separate to mine. And they so you can order whatever size and whichever design you want, and they print it and they'll ship it to you. Or if you're local here in Central Iowa, you can go pick it up from them. I do get a tiny bit of the proceeds, but honestly, I try to just cover the costs on whatever pricing I have, because I would rather have you representing and wearing my swag than for me to make a little bit of a profit off of it. It's not my thing on that side. It's just not a focus for me. So Jiminy Cricket's swag coming soon. I will probably make an announcement on it, either via short or an actual video. And usually those stores are only open for about 3 weeks. You can order, and like I said, you can order any of those designs and they'll ship them to your door. Okay. There you go, Garrick. One of these days while you're cooking pasta, I've never had cricket pasta, like cricket. It maybe be like mussels in your pasta, but crickets, you could totally do that. Let me know how that works out if it happens. Yes, 100,000 crickets. I know that sounds like a lot, but it just happens. You should do bumper stickers so we can do advertising for you. I will work on that. I would love to do, so I have like these vinyl stickers that you could probably use as a bumper sticker. There's a lot of those things. There's a lot of those swag things that I'm working on that I would love to do. Okay. My cricket farm partner / friend overheated most of our cricket population last night. He decided to play Fortnite instead of his duties. He's awaiting trial. Oh, be nice. Should I restrict his access to crickets? Maybe. That's one of those things that you learn what works and what doesn't. I would love to know what you have in terms of your setup for like heaters and things like that. That's actually an easily controlled human error problem if you can just get, they're fairly inexpensive. You can get these thermostats, which is what I have in my cricket barn, where it's like a pigtail is what you call it. So it's a thermostat that you plug into the outlet, and then you plug the heater into an outlet within the thermostat. And so it plugs in there, and then when it's below a certain temperature, the thermostat kicks on, which essentially, I don't know what you would call it. It's not a trigger. It triggers the electricity on so that then the heater will run until it gets up to a certain temperature, and then it kicks off and it cuts off the power. Those work really well. I think there was like $50, maybe $60. They haven't failed me yet. They have the reverse ones as well on a the they have a reverse one for air conditioning as well if you need it in the summer, depending on where you are and how hot your facility gets. Both of them work well. Super easy, fail safe, in my opinion. They also have the same thing for humidifiers. So, like, let's say your barn runs humidifiers and dehumidifiers. So, let's say that your barn either runs humid or it runs too dry. You can do, there's similar contraptions out there where you plug in either the dehumidifier or the humidifier and they kick on when they need to. So, there's a lot of things out there that don't have to be super high tech. Like, you don't have to have sensors everywhere and do all of that. That keeps things pretty consistent. So check into that. You're well on your way to becoming a true cricket farmer if you just killed a whole bunch of crickets. So congratulations. Okay. So actually, Garrick, this next one is from you. Just wanted to update you that my first crickets I raised from egg are now grown into the chirping stage. Yay. Congratulations. That's super awesome. Musical chorus is finally here, but I only have about 2 dozen left. Some hopped out and about, got squished and eaten by the cat. Cats will do that. And my second batch is maybe 5 dozen, I think. Not getting hundreds just yet, but guess I'll have to build up. Yep, it's a process. You'll get the hang of it. You'll get healthier populations. Okay. Another question. I have an issue for this mold mite. They're massive, living in the bottom of my baby bin, and they smell and eating the baby. Also the food, but I can't find it in one of the adult bins. So I actually, and I should have taken a video of this. So my last, not my current hatching pinheads, but my ones prior to that, I had really bad mites in my substrate. Don't know why. They were just really, really bad. Luckily, this round we have a little bit, and I think they're always kind of present. I don't think you get rid of them. But last time, for whatever reason, like it was bad to the point where it kept things from hatching. So we definitely didn't hatch out as many pinheads as we wanted, but truthfully it worked out for the best because I'm trying to not structure my barn so that all of it is the same age because it's just harder for me to manage. So mine is staggered. So then chores are staggered, harvest is staggered. It's much more manageable chunks for me. So it all works out because it kind of forced me into that because I didn't have the whole barn hatch at once. So I'm sorry that you're having that problem. I would recommend like washing everything out, but you probably will not completely get rid of them. They're just a reality of it. If you're noticing it in a particular substrate, get rid of that substrate, try a different one. You can also put your substrate in the freezer. That should take care of them. Or if you can go the opposite direction and cook it. Either way, should help. Someone says I have a cricket farm from Indonesia. Hello, welcome. Thank you for watching. Very cool. Am I from Grand Prairie? I am not. I'm from Central Iowa. So I'm not from Grand Prairie. Do I sound like I'm from Grand Prairie? Do I know anyone from Grand Prairie? And is Grand Prairie in Canada or Minnesota or both? Anyways, I love that some people said that the chirping doesn't drive them crazy. They say that it is soothing. Okay, this question. Is it okay not to put screens on breeding soil? And what kind of soil do you use? So I do not put screens over my breeding trays. I've never had an issue with hatching, save like the last time, but that was mites. That was not the adult crickets eating the eggs. So I've seen some people that do put like a screen, so aluminum screen, same as like a window screen. I've seen them put that over their breeding substrate. Then the females just lay their eggs through the holes. That's fine. They do it. No big deal. But for me, I've never needed to do that. I haven't had any issues. So in my case, I would see that as additional labor that is just not necessary. So do with that as you please. Like you can do it, but to me, it doesn't make sense. And then what kind of soil do I use? I use an organic peat moss that I source at our local home improvement store. So somewhere like a Lowe's, a Menards, a farm store would work as well. Any of those. Oh, Garrick, this is one that I meant to respond to, and I just haven't yet. Or no, I did. And you asked about what species has the best sound, and does it make a difference in terms of breed? Yes, it makes a massive difference. Each different species has like its own chirp. Some of them are more pleasant than others. So commonly what's raised for the food market commercially, at least here in the US, is either the banded cricket, which is really common, particularly in the larger guys in Canada. So things like Entomo farms and stuff like that. Even my friends up the road at Three Cricketeers, they raise banded crickets. The reason that they raise those is almost entirely because they're supposedly hardier against the cricket paralysis virus. Whatever. They have a really, really gross chirp. Like it's really shrill. I hate it. I could not grow those crickets. I have friends up in Canada that have a small cricket farm in Canada that they raise banded, and whenever they put a video of their crickets chirping on a story, I DM them and I'm like, I don't know how you guys deal with that really shrill chirp. It's terrible. So I think Akita has a really pleasant chirp. But it very much depends on the breed. So each breed has its own different chirp sound. And so breed at your own risk with that. So yes, it makes a difference. Awesome video. We'll use as background for studying. Thanks. I listened to it the other night going to sleep, and it was really pleasant. I think I'm going to do a longer version of that, like a 45-minute or an hour, just because I just really enjoyed the crickets chirping more than I thought I would. So, okay, another question. Hi, Shelby. Around 26:30, you state that crickets need to have an animal protein in their diet or they'll cannibalize. Later on, you mentioned this food with animal protein costs a lot more, obviously. Now I'm wondering, what about boiled chicken eggs? Interesting. I have a few chickens and already gave my crickets boiled eggs. Wouldn't that be a way to reduce the cost in feeding them? One could dry the boiled eggs and then add them, and then adding and mixing in with a cheaper dry food without animal protein. Just thinking aloud. Yes, I don't see why that wouldn't work. I've never tried egg powder, but I think that would absolutely work. That would cover your bases in terms of complete animal protein. I think they would do really well on it. Again, so like I was saying about the guy in Russia earlier, whatever you have available to you at low cost for animal protein, use it. There will be obviously slight variation in terms of what they like and what they prefer. So crickets are finicky like anything else, and so they do have their certain preferences. But if you can get them to eat the eggs and they're doing well on it, definitely do it. I think that's actually a really good option. What else? Do you have to put them in an incubator? I assume this is talking about cricket eggs. Yes, you do want to separate them out into an incubator. It takes about, depending on your conditions, anywhere from 7 to 21 days if you have them cool enough for the crickets to start hatching. But you do want to separate them out from the larger crickets because otherwise, A, they're going to eat them once they've hatched, or B, like there's no way for you to really efficiently separate them if you're going to harvest them out or use them or feed them. So definitely separate them. I'm going to save this one for a later time. If you were building a new facility, how would you design it specifically? I'm going to do a longer video about that because I'm working on that as we speak, because I have another building that we'll be looking at building. So pause on that one. I promise I'll come back. Ola from South Florida. Hello. Great video. Thank you. Interested in raising my own protein. Super cool. I've had a lot of conversations with people lately about wanting to raise their own protein this way. So very cool. Welcome to the channel. Happy to answer any questions on that. I have some other cool ideas around food sovereignty and growing protein for folks that maybe have problems or limitations. More on that as it develops. But thank you. Interested in raising my own protein. One question. Once they're in the second container, how do you get them into the freezable zip bags without any of them jumping away? This is difficult, but this can be done. The best way to do it is stick them in the fridge so you slow them down. So they go into hibernation, dormancy, they slow down, they don't move as much. The next step that I do is I take a 1 gallon plastic pitcher, and I will do a video of this at some point. 1 gallon plastic pitcher, and I dump the crickets in the 1 gallon plastic pitcher, and then the 1 gallon bag fits over the top of that perfectly. You flip it over, voila, they're in the bag. Works every time. So I will make a video of that because that's not, you need the visual more than anything, but that's the way we do it. Okay, I promise that I will do another one of these next weekend. I had to think about if I have a Sunday event next weekend, and I don't. So I am going to stop from that question. So I still have questions from 5 days ago, which is fine. So we'll get those next week. And I'm going to go to the chat and read through and make sure that I didn't miss any of your questions as we go. I will not neglect this for another month, I promise. That was my bad. My cricket farm. Okay, you said that one already. My coworker gets stuck on Minecraft. I could see that. It happens. We have one of those. He did not give foods with moisture. They essentially got dehydrated. It happens. Like, sometimes lessons are learned the hardest way. 3 new containers crickets already. Oh, good. So you are expanding your population, Garrick. That's awesome news. I'm so glad. We bought some of your barbecue crickets. My partner really enjoyed them. He shoved his face full of them while playing Fortnite. Super. Great gaming food. Keeps your brain moving. He liked them so much that he forgot to take care of our own crickets. We'll work on it, man. Sorry. You need to whip him into shape. Make sure you don't get Miracle Grow peat moss. That stuff has fertilizer. Thank you for bringing that up. I know there is a question on there that has been within the last week of somebody asking if they can do that. Can they get the peat moss with the fertilizer because that's all they can find? Absolutely not. The salt content and all the other chemicals in there are going to wreak havoc on your baby crickets and your pinheads. So you need to get something that does not have any sort of fertilizer in it, any sort of chemical fertilizer in it. If you have to use something else, so if it needs to be something like coconut coir or some potting soils or something like that that is free from the fertilizer, use that instead. If you can't find peat moss without fertilizer in it, there are other options. Like I said, coconut coir would work. So would some sort of potting soil. You can even use sand. Sand works as well. Oftentimes in Southeast Asia, they use sand, and many times they're actually sifting the eggs out of it. It's really interesting, really cool. I would love to try it at some point, and maybe I will this summer. We'll see. But that's a great. Thank you for bringing that up, Garrick. And then I just don't like the super long antenna of the banded crickets. Neither does my leopard gecko. Interesting. I could see where the leopard gecko probably would be freaked out by the long antenna. I personally, like I said, cannot stand the chirping. It's a very, very shrill chirping sound. I'm sure there has to be some video of it out there on the YouTube world of banded crickets chirping. it's gross to me. So I 10 out of 10 recommend that you would raise a Cata over banded, particularly if you are raising them for the purpose of the wonderful sounds that they're making, because I could not grow the banded. So anyways, okay, I feel like I've been really, really long-winded on this one. Thank you guys so much for joining. I will be back next Sunday. I don't know what time yet. I have no idea. Because I have an event on Friday and Saturday. And I mean, it's Memorial Day weekend, but that's fine. What's a holiday when you're a farmer? I neglected and killed most of our population by playing Fortnite. Man, Fortnite just gets the best of them, huh? So I will be back next weekend and I will cover the rest of the questions. Like I said, I stopped at about 5 days out from the most recent questions. I'm hoping to get up a video by sometime midweek this week talking about why I was traveling to DC last week and all of those sort of things, so that you guys can know why I was traveling, who took me out there, what I was doing out there. I got to spend a lot of time with my nieces and nephews, which was awesome because I don't get to see them very often. And so yeah, I will have a little bit more to share with you on just a regular upload, and then do stay tuned for my shorts and things like that. Like I said, I'm just messing around with some shorter form content to see what it does. And thank you so much for watching. I am about 100 hours away from monetization on this channel, which is wild. Very quickly approaching the 2,000 subscriber mark. And like I said, I'm about, as of this morning, 110 watch hours away from getting monetized by YouTube. So that's thanks to you guys who watch this channel, watch my content regularly, interact with my content, answer questions and comments. Like, couldn't do it without you. I can't watch 4,000 hours worth of my own content. So appreciate you. Thanks for being here. As always, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. Happy to get to them next week. I usually am pretty good at replying to people in the actual comment feed. I've slacked on that lately, but I've been busy. So thanks for being here. Have a wonderful Sunday. I have to go make some crickets. So see you guys.